Guys, this morning we continue as we discuss our first news item regarding the resumption of duty of Police Commissioner Earl Haywood Christopher. Now, this morning we are chatting in his capacity as former police commissioner. We have on with us this morning Mr. Gary Griffith.
Good morning.
Good morning. Now, I want to play a short clip from that video that you submitted because, to be honest, it kind of explains everything. And there isn't really much to ask because you really went through thoroughly the entire idea and perspective of political involvement and disruption within the police service, right? So I'm going to ask my producer to just play a short clip from that.
It is good, once again, to speak not as a politician, but as a former National Security Advisor, Security Minister, and Police Commissioner on matters that directly impact the safety and security of citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. The recent situation involving former Commissioner of Police Earl Christopher, this is not isolated, and now presently reappointed Commissioner of Police Earl Christopher. It is the latest in a long line of incidents that expose just how deeply politics has infiltrated our systems of law enforcement and national intelligence. We could start with the Brent Thomas matter, a law-abiding citizen who was abducted outside our territorial jurisdiction on the directive of the then Minister of National Security, because only a Minister of National Security could give instructions for police officers to leave our territorial waters to be involved in any operation. And a judge rightfully questioned how officers involved in that unlawful action could still be serving in the TTPS. But instead, what did we do? We said nothing. Instead of accountability, one of the individuals involved was rewarded with a promotion to Deputy Commissioner of Police by a police service commission that was handpicked by a president who was selected by politicians. And we said nothing. Then there was Pastor Brown, who was defamed and publicly labeled as a self-proclaimed pastor by politically driven actors. All charges eventually dropped. No evidence. Just yet again a deliberate, coordinated character assassination campaign. And we said nothing. Next came the case of Roger Bess, a director of the SSE, who acted within the law to facilitate the legal acquisition of weapons for the Defense Force. He too was arrested, humiliated, and dismissed. The charges were baseless and the attack was political. And we said nothing. I too endured these same tactics. During my tenure, I refused to arrest political opponents without evidence. The response? A report then came out with lies and false accusations written by one named Barrington, who submitted this to a Prime Minister, and he, the Prime Minister, and Blessy Prasad, used this to unlawfully interfere with a merit list for Commissioner of Police. That list was then withdrawn without approval from the Police Service Commission, and a dangerous precedent was set. Once more, we said nothing. And what became of that civilian who submitted the false report? He too was rewarded and appointed director of the SSE. Now, as we go back to the Earl Christopher matter, we are witnessing the same movie with a recycled script. The arrest of a sitting commissioner of police without evidence or legal justification. And this has embarrassed our nation and virtually crippled public trust in law enforcement. Now, this is based on a sniper rifle. A sniper rifle, they claim, which is legally available to licensed civilians for sport shooting.
Well, you saw a bit of that discussion there, and as I was saying, there isn't really much questions to ask when we listen to that because it was very thorough, and I hope that other individuals are following you on social media and have the opportunity to go ahead and listen to it in its entirety. But in essence, you have come out to speak about the interference of politicians as it pertains to the handling of the police and the police matters. But this morning, I want to ask, within this short space of time, we hear that the police commissioner, her last day is the 16th of May. What can she truly do to impact crime within the next 3 days?
Well, good morning again. What she had the opportunity for 2 years. What she didn't do in 2 years, she certainly cannot do in 2 days. I think it is cosmetic that she was reappointed just before her termination date, which is good because at least her name will be cleared. It was very embarrassing, and the sad thing about this is that, as I mentioned, any first-year law degree student would have known that if you read the law, a commissioner of police has approval to authorization to issue
not semi-automatic weapons to a civilian. He or she can do that. So for the attorneys, the police officers who claim to be attorneys in the legal department of the police service, and they were going on television speaking about all of these things of a thorough investigation. They were dumb. They were dumb. They were clueless. They had no knowledge of the law, and they still represented the police on media on a daily basis in the mornings. They did not read that the commissioner of police had authority to approve semi-automatic weapons. Writing all these fancy things to turn the weapon into a sniper weapon that can be used for terrorist activities, and it's a deadly weapon, and it's a weapon that should not be given to civilians. The law said it could, because there are hundreds of civilians who have similar sniper rifles that they use for competitive sport. Any rifle that you put on sights and stuff can be seen as and called a sniper rifle. So if they did not read the law, and then what made it worse is the persons who went ahead and arrested her are still in the position. They should be suspended immediately by the Police Service Commission. So all of this, it is unfortunate. My point is all of this is based on politics, because you recall when it is you were speaking about Ulla Christopher and Roger Best, it was the politicians, the Prime Minister, the Minister of Finance, the Minister of National Security, speaking all of these ill things about terrorist attempts and assassination plots and plans to bring in these weapons illegally. A director of the SSA was fired because of it, and it was a lie. So all of this again, and it happened even with myself, where a senior government minister called me to tell me he has files and information to arrest David Lee. And then when I look at the files, I realize that there's nothing on it to warrant him being arrested. As soon as I left, the commissioner who replaced me arrested David Lee. And now the taxpayers will now have to pay David Lee, they'll have to pay Lola Christopher, they will have to pay Roger Best, they'll have to pay Brent Thomas, they'll have to pay Pastor Brown, Gary Griffith have a few matters as well that these taxpayers will have to pay. It can't be right. We have to find an avenue to prevent politicians from infiltrating and manipulating investigations.
Right. And there are persons who have raised concern about, a possible response from Ulla here with Christopher to her colleagues as it pertains to that arrest. Is it a safe environment for her to go back in there with them still being there? Does it call for a productive working environment, or does it create a toxic work situation?
Well, it does. It does. If it is that senior officers were instrumental in trying to arrest her, and the law was as clear as day, as I said, a first-year law student would have known that. The police officers who were in the legal department were clueless. They were dumb. The law states that the commissioner of police has authority to approve licenses for semi-automatic weapons. The weapon was a semi-automatic weapon. All the hullabaloo they tried to brainwash, and the prime minister as well, try to brainwash the country. It's an assassination weapon. It's a weapon used for terrorists. It's a weapon that can destabilize the country. These are weapons that were actually being acquired through Roger Best in the SSA for the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force. And he had an FUL which gave him the authority to sign for it, as any of the hundreds of civilians had it. So with all of this, and you have senior officers so dumb as well to also keep pushing it, it meant that it's either they are clueless as police officers, which means they should be suspended for being stupid, or this was deliberately done to remove the sitting commissioner of police because of an agenda either by politicians or other senior officers who wanted her job. Whichever it is, the Police Service Commission, the same way they moved with speed to have Ulla Christopher suspended immediately based on the allegations of her being arrested. The same way they should have suspended these individuals for incompetence and falsely arresting a commissioner of police with lies and misinformation that has affected her career, but more so has affected the image of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. So
right, and is it possible for her to launch an investigation into these senior officers for the actions that they would have taken against her?
No, I wouldn't do that. If it is himself or herself onto herself, what should happen is that she should write to the Police Service Commission and demand that these individuals be suspended for incompetence, stupidity, or being vindictive. Whichever it is, they should be. Any developed country in the world, if it is that you have junior officers arresting a commissioner of police and had to spend for them to spend 3 days, it meant they were on a fishing expedition. Because if you have nobody is above the law, don't get me wrong. So if a commissioner of police has broken the law, you must make sure you have enough hard-hitting evidence to say, look, I've taken a wicket one time, let's go. But they spent 3 days interrogating her on a fishing expedition, which meant they did not have the evidence required. They were hunting and hoping they could find something. With all of that taking place, it meant that for you to have done that to a commissioner of police, as I said, incompetence or being vindictive, whatever it is, they should be suspended. And the officers who were involved in the investigation from the legal department, there are certain corporal and some others, they should be removed from the legal department. That is what I did, in fact. When I was commissioner, I realized we had police officers who felt that they were attorneys and they were clueless. And that's why I brought in civilians, and all of a sudden we started winning cases. The police lose many cases because these comical wannabe attorneys who are police officers with their first degree, they go up against seasoned defense attorneys and they are massacred. And the criminal elements escape because they have better attorneys than the police officers. This is a perfect example. So what I would recommend is the Police Service Commission should have acted immediately to have these individuals suspended. The Police Complaints Authority should also have launched an investigation on this whole matter and even investigate the politicians who were very instrumental in pushing the agenda to try to manipulate the minds of the public into believing that Ulla Christopher was guilty and she had to prove her innocence, which is not the way it works.
Understood. And even moving forward, what do you think are the type of initiative that has to be done within the police service, not just to increase public confidence, but internal employee stakeholder confidence in each other?
Yeah. Excellent question. The first thing is we have to remove the Professional Standards Bureau. That PSB has been an avenue for bacchanal, corruption, backstabbing. Police officers go in there and they spend their time trying to lick up the senior officers to get their job. We even had one who made a report littered with lies that smeared the character and the reputation of ACP Wendell Lucas, who was supposed to have been appointed as a DCP in Parliament. But because of that fake report by this ACP, he was removed. And then when it is because the politicians didn't realize that when I launched an investigation, we realized that everything that this joker said was a lie. But the man's reputation was already affected. Lucas did not get appointed, and now he has moved on. So that PSB, that is the same PSB where rogue officers in the police service try to liaise with others to try to have me removed, not realizing the person they used outside was an informant for me. So he gave us sworn affidavit showing rogue officers who were involved in deliberately trying to manipulate and fabricate a matter to have me removed. That is what the PSB is about. It has to be removed and have it equate with the internal affairs in the United States, where you have an organization of police officers separate and apart from the TTPS, and they can actually go under the Police Complaint Authority. So that is what is required to prevent this type of nonsense taking place all the time with police trying to lick up police to get their job. The other matter has to do with the selection process of the Commissioner of Police, not knocking Ulla. We continue to knock Ulla because of her well, she doesn't seem to be the sharpest tool in the shed, but that's not her fault. She applied. When we had international experts selecting the Commissioner of Police based on the merit list, Ulla Christopher could not come in the top 20. And then they changed it from the international experts to have the Police Service Commission do the process. And that Police Service Commission of Judith Jones, Maxine Atong, and these others, they imposed Ulla on us. So somebody who didn't come in the top 20. So when I got 82%, they were by qualified experts. Ulla Christopher got 52. 20 other persons were ahead of her. And then when they changed it now, the Police Service Commission could see the same individual who could come in the top 20 a couple of years before could now come number one. We are selecting the wrong persons when you have a locally based Police Service Commission who's appointed by a president, who's appointed by politicians, and the Police Service Commission, none of them are trained, qualified, or experienced in any aspect of policing or law enforcement. They are going to make the wrong choice, and when they make the wrong choice, the country suffers. So we must first, as I said, shut down the PSB, have the powers of arrest and investigation, specifically with the Police Complaint Authority, and two, revert to international qualified experts going through the process for the selection of Commissioner of Police through the merit list and not through the Police Service Commission.
Right, but there is a recruitment for the Police Service Commissioner that's coming up quite soon. And so the question lies, would you even be interested in going back into such a toxic working environment?
No, but I think that has already been done. They were moving at a pace there. I think there's interviews and so forth, but as I said, that was selected by a Police Service Commission. So, and this is not to knock the individuals who are in the merit list at this time, but it would be better for the country that that whole thing should be scrapped and you go through a proper process. Penn State, for example, selected Dwayne Gibbs over all of the other police officers. UK experts selected myself. I got 82%. And then I'll give you an example. I will get 82% and still get more than everybody else. And the Police Service Commission at the time, involving Martin George and Commodore Franklin and others, they decided to put me fourth, even though I got the highest number of points, because they are the Police Service Commission. And remember, they were selected by politicians. So a politician could say, hey, remember who put you there? That is the problem. It cannot be the Police Service Commission. So there is a present merit list, but as I said, that merit list was based on civilians in the Police Service Commission with no training, qualification, or knowledge in law enforcement. How could these persons have the capability to select? We will select other Earlers, we will select other McDonald Jacobs, we will select other Stephen Williams. We don't need that. What we need is Dwayne Gibbs, we need Brandy Burrows. We need qualified international experts to select the best person for the job as police commissioner, and not civilians with no training or knowledge because they were appointed as a police service commission by a president who's appointed by politicians.
But if I'm not mistaken, I believe the Prime Minister in her address last week would have addressed that and hinted to the fact that that process would be scrapped.
Well, until that is done, we still have to accept it for what it is. And as I said, the good thing for this country is that I have worked, even though the present Prime Minister and myself, we had the same mission, which was to remove the PNM, but we had a different direction. At least the one thing that I'm comfortable with is the things that I would have seen from the present administration of prime ministers trying to manipulate a commissioner of police, trying to get him put in $40 million in the account of the police service to investigate political opponents, trying to tell the commissioner of police who must be arrested because of him being clueless not to understand public service regulations meant we couldn't arrest people in their homes, but we could arrest them out in the public. And people, because they're so blinded by politics, still try to argue with the police about it. Thankfully, this present Prime Minister, when I was there as a security minister and advisor, she never manipulated the system to try to influence the commissioner of police, try to fire a director of the SSA because he's not doing what we want. So hopefully those problems no longer exist. The problem that must be rectified is the process for the selection of the commissioner of police. Don't get me wrong. When that is done, the Police Service Commission can assess the performance of the commissioner of police because you have an idiot's guide, reduction in crime, financial reports, administration, public trust and confidence in the commissioner, public trust and confidence in the police service. They can do that, but they do not have the capability to question and interview and interrogate someone to see whether they are the best person for the job as commissioner of police.
Right, and even as it pertains to the current budget available at the Office of the Attorney General, we heard him saying that when he spoke to his PS, he was told that the vote for legal expenses has been overdrawn. How does that affect justice in Trinidad and Tobago?
Well, definitely it would. I mean, when I drafted the Ministry of Justice for Kamala Prasad, and it was to deal with so many of the flaws in the criminal justice system. But money isn't everything. There are a lot of things that can still be done back at the ranch. For example, ways to reduce recidivism in the prisons, ways to improve rehabilitation by giving persons the opportunity to have a trade when they leave prison, making sure that persons cannot stay in remand for a longer period than the maximum length of the sentence for the crime that they committed, making sure that police absenteeism, we had it was ridiculous. It was like about 9 out of every 10 cases were being lost because police didn't show up to the court and nothing was done to the officers. So there's a lot that can be done based on good leadership and putting systems of accountability and to measure performance. So even though there is a shortage of funding based on probably bad spending, bad management or whatever in the past, things can still be done in the present.
Excellent. And even before you go, is there anything that you want to say to the present police commissioner in her last few days in office?
Yeah, again, Ulla, I really wish you the best. I mean, what they did to you, no one will wish that on their worst enemy. It was unfortunate, but you were used and sidelined in the same way they tried it with me. They certainly would not have done that to me. If they had turned up in my office, I would have chased them like a dog because I would have shown them the law and run them. Because no way, as a commissioner of police, you could come in my office, no little corporal or somebody could come and tell me I arrested you. I'll run you because show me what you arrested me for. You couldn't arrest me. I am free. And I would have shown them the law. But what they did with me is whisper to the ears of politicians to have a meritless move because they know that I would adhere to the state regulations. I don't understand a little corporal come in and feel like they could arrest me with lies because you have your plan. So what they did with Erla was, I think, totally unfortunate. It was nasty. And I do hope that the individuals who have done that should be, as I said, they should be removed from the legal department. They should be removed from senior positions. Because if they did that to Erla, they could do that to any law-abiding citizen in this country. And in fact, they did it. They did it to Brent Thomas. It was done to Brent Thomas when it was approved by a Minister of National Security who gave them the approval. And a judge stated that this person should be removed from office. And instead of her being removed, the Police Service Commission, who were handpicked by politicians, decided to promote the individuals to Deputy Commissioner of Police. That is tantamount to us being a police state. So it is hoped that these matters can be rectified. A proper Police Service Commission that is impartial and not being blinded by politics can do the right thing. And that Erla Christopher, God is good. You're definitely not a James Bond, but you're a good person and you deserve to be back where you are and that your name has been cleared.
Excellent. We want to thank you so much for your time this morning and for that thorough explanation. Again, we want to hope that you have a great day. Guys, we're going to take a quick break right here and we'll be back right after this. See you soon.
It's a brand new morning, rise up to a brand new